What's up, guys? Back with another video. I want to preface this by saying that I'm gonna try to keep this somewhat brief. Maybe I'll rant a little bit, but I just want to preface this by saying that this topic is a personal one for me, but I feel it's my responsibility to just clarify that I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm not giving any sort of medical advice or anything like that. I'm just speaking from my own experience, and I just wanted to talk about it today. So, I want to talk about anxiety and how, in my experience, how I was able to work through it, deal with it, kind of um, resolve a lot of the triggers of my anxiety that I've had over the past couple of years. This was something I alluded to in a previous video where I talked about having to go to the hospital a couple of times for, heart issues and things like that. And ultimately, it was found that it wasn't a cardiovascular issue of mine. My heart was in proper working order, but the best the doctors come up with was that it was anxiety. And that has only been a part of my life that I've been dealing with. It's only been something I've been dealing with for um, maybe the past 4 years or so, maybe 5 years, like just before the pandemic. I would say, um, yeah, it's been a long journey. I should say. I should start by saying, uh, I'm definitely a lot better now. Um, Being able to work on the things that I'll list for you guys, as we get along in the conversation. Some of the tools I've used throughout those years have been really beneficial to me, and I think for anyone dealing with anxiety, um, these are some good tools. I would say anyone can really utilize outside of you know Western medicine. I don't know how else to say it. Like medication or anything like that. Because there are certain things that cause anxiety that may have to do with your diet. It might be uh, some sort of mental, issue as well. But again, like I don't want to go into that aspect of it because I'm not. I don't have, you know, the what's the word I'm looking for? The accreditation, the title to speak on these things. It's just my personal experience, what I'm going to be talking about. So the first thing I want to talk about in terms of how I've dealt with my anxiety stems from where it all started. The first thing, when I was at my old job, there was a lot of day-to-day stress. It was a fast-paced environment. Um, I was in healthcare, and it wasn't like I was in a hospital dealing with patients, but it was dealing with a lot of data entry, I suppose. It was specifically prior authorizations. I don't want to go into what that is, but it's basically a process of reviewing procedures for the medical need. Anyways, so that kind of job took its toll on me, and it was around. I would say it was around the birth of my child that I think that's when it really started. These anxiety, issues really started to kick in. Beforehand, I never really got anxious about anything or had panic attacks, anxiety attacks, anything like that. And so I think in a lot of ways, there was just a lot on my plate at that time, and it all just kind of boiled over. I had my first panic attack at work. I was actually, well, I'd gotten through the day, but I was on my way home from that job. And I can recall the days leading up to it were very stressful. I didn't like where I was in that job. The amount of work I was putting in, I felt like was undervalued. It was all stemming from money issues, not having enough to cover, our basic needs, and having to work overtime and work on Saturdays and come in early, staying late. Like all of that was just adding up. I just wasn't physically and mentally capable of sustaining that during that time. Sometimes the weekend was not enough of a rest for me to get away from that environment. I can remember taking vacations where I would have paid time off accrued. I'd have like several weeks accrued of this paid time off, and I would use pretty much all of it. I think the most I took was like a month straight off. And it was amazing. It was great to just not have to go to work, not have to deal with those people, that job. It was amazing. It was like, I don't know. It did something to me that just opened my eyes to where I'm at now. I think it really opened the door to a possibility of me not being in a 9 to 5 work environment, but still being able to work, earn income to take care of the necessities, but also put money towards my future, my family's future. So when I was on the way home, I suddenly felt this pressure in my chest, and it felt like there was like I heard a pop. I don't know how else to describe it. It felt like a pop in my chest. And at that point, a wave of dread, fear, just washed over me. And I was driving at the time, so I thought I was having a heart attack, and I didn't know what to do in that moment. So I pulled over, and I was just trying to take stock of myself. I didn't know what a heart attack was. I didn't know any of these triggers, these symptoms, that I would later find out are basically, an anxiety attack, a panic attack. And so I actually drove home feeling the way I did. I don't know why I did, because I guess at some, in my own rationale, I just thought, I don't know if it's a heart attack. I feel like if it was, it would be like my chest would be, in pain. My heart would actually be in pain, and it doesn't feel like that, but there's definitely something wrong. I just don't know what it is. So I drove home, and I just felt so physically drained. I went inside. I told my wife, like, I'm gonna go lay down. I just don't feel good. And the whole time this is happening, my heart is racing. I've got like, my palms are sweaty, my forehead's sweaty. I felt like really faint during this time. And so I went to lay down, and I figured, well, if I lay down, then, my heart will start to settle, and it'll start, returning to a normal heart rate. That didn't happen. And so coupled with the physical symptoms, my thoughts were just racing of what this could be. So I told my wife, I'm going, like, I need you to take me to the ER. That's what I told her. I need you to take me to the ER. I don't feel good. I don't know what's going on with me. I just need to get checked out. Get checked out. They run all the tests, to check my heart and everything. And then they determine it's anxiety. I go home. I'm still baffled because I'm like not understanding what happened. Because again, when I was on the road, I felt this pop in my chest and I was like, what the hell is that? Turned out later, I found out like I have like this issue with my rib cage where I think it's called costochondritis. If you're ever curious, if you're ever wondering what that is, check it out. It's a very interesting condition. It's like inflammation in the cartilage of your ribs, like the cartilage between your rib bones, I guess. And so that was the excuse me, that was the first instance of my anxiety. And periodically, I would have similar type episodes at work where it would just be an accumulation of stress. I would get the same kind of symptoms, minus the chest popping, but I would still get, the heart racing, the palpitations, the sweaty palms, this feeling of dread, just washing over you, and just this fear of dying. It really felt like I was in that state that I was going to die. And that was definitely an awakening experience for me, eye-opening experience, I should say. So throughout this experience of having anxiety, the amount of, I guess, episodes, for lack of a better term, that I've had with anxiety have been fewer and far between. So that is something that I'm very grateful for. Speaking of gratitude, I spoke on that in a short I posted not that long ago. But I am definitely grateful to have gotten this far in my process and have been able to be better for it. Yeah. So a big part of that, several things actually, that have helped me along the way, I will list off now, and I'll go into each one, individually. The first thing that I worked on was my breath work. I realized that a lot of I guess I should say, like, I, for the longest time, was not breathing correctly. Majority of my breathing was not done through my nose because I have like a deviated septum. And I didn't even notice this for a very long time. I was breathing majority of time through my mouth. So that was causing a lot of issues too with my anxiety. Breathing through your mouth when you're anxious, when your heart's racing, it's the worst way to breathe, because and not only that, you're breathing with your chest when you're breathing with your mouth because you're not really using your diaphragm. And so I had to relearn how to breathe during this time. Using my diaphragm instead of my chest to breathe was very counterintuitive, but it's actually the way you're supposed to be breathing. I mean, singers use their diaphragm because they need that air to be able to breathe in and force the air out to, make those notes, right? So I had to learn that using not only my diaphragm, but breathing 100% through my nasal passages. And that was hard because, again, I had been dealing with deviated septum issues and sinus issues. I'd had a couple of sinus infections throughout this time frame that I'm speaking of. So that was another trigger of like feeling like I was getting a nosebleed, and it would trigger like this anxious, kind of reaction of like, oh no, I gotta find something to, stop the bleeding or whatever. So that was part of those triggers, was feeling the need to cover my nose if I thought I was going to have a nosebleed because of my nose getting too dried out or something. One of those triggers. So the breath work was a challenge. It took quite a long time for me to be able to get used to breathing through my nose as part of that breath work to calm my mind and my body. Through my breath work and my meditation, which is another aspect of how I've been getting through this process, it really took the edge off of a lot of the symptoms that I had been experiencing. So the breath work, specifically box breathing, BOX breathing. If you're ever wondering what that is, there's no shortage of box breathing videos on YouTube. There's really some really good ones that are like kind of guided exercises that basically tell you when to breathe, when to breathe out, when to hold your breath, all that stuff. Really good resource on YouTube. What else was I going to say about that? So aside from the breath work, meditation for me was something I was already used to. I was already implementing in my daily routine, but under times of great stress, it was something that I was not leaning on very much. It was something that I should have been leaning on, honestly. At my most frustrating moments are when I should have been meditating, when I should have found a space and a time to settle my mind down and process my emotions. And I wasn't doing that. And that's kind of what led to those anxiety attacks. So aside from that, I found that getting out into open space was another benefit for me. Whenever I would start to feel anxious, or my heart would start racing, or the sweaty palms, any of those symptoms, getting out into open space. And by open space I mean outdoors. That's what I mean. Like, you can find a space that's devoid of people, like an empty room, like that might help, sure. But the more open it is, the more outdoors it is, meaning getting some fresh air and, if possible, some sunlight, natural sunlight, really benefited me, in addition to those other techniques. Getting out for a walk is another big part of that. Like, that's basically two birds with one stone. I'm getting exercise by walking. I'm getting out in nature. And of course, by being out in nature, you're in that open space, open air, open space. And that really does take a lot of the pressure off of your mind. When you can find that space and time to do that, it's kind of like a maintenance thing. Everyone should be doing it. Everyone should be going for walks. That's my opinion. I mean, aside from your normal exercise routines, just going out, 15, 30-minute walk around the neighborhood. I mean, not only did it have mental health and physical health benefits for me, because that was another aspect of my health, was being able to get into a exercise routine again. It started with walking for me. Because when I used to go to the gym, I hurt myself I hurt my back, and I had a I had an incident where I fainted at the gym, and I think now, knowing what I do about how I was going about my exercise, I really was just overexerting myself, and that's what caused me to faint at the gym. Um, so there was a long while where I was hurt. My back was pretty jacked up. My neck was definitely jacked up, and so it for a long time I wasn't doing anything. I was very stagnant, basically couch potato, and that kind of led to that next episode of me having to go to the ER thinking I was having a heart attack. Like just being sedentary really built up that stress and that anxiety for me. And then it again boiled over. So, yeah, getting back to what I was saying about having a routine, just being able to walk out into your neighborhood, around uh, just kind of expanding your surroundings a little bit, just more aware of your neighborhood and your surroundings outside of your home, I think is a really good benefit, because a lot of people, I mean, in my opinion, a lot of people do not really get to know their neighbors. It's kind of something that's kind of fallen off over the years. It used to be that you would know who your next door neighbors were. You could, ask them for help, or, I mean, in some circumstances, you could use them as a babysitter, or, you know what I mean? Like, you could count on them to help you out if you really, really needed it, and vice versa. And nowadays, I mean, if you live in a city, you don't really know your neighbors too well. I live in a pretty decent sized apartment complex, and I honestly don't know as many people as I would like to that live around me. Like, I know my direct next door neighbor that we share a wall with, but there are other tenants around me that I don't know who they are. We either don't see each other, or we don't exchange you know pleasantries or anything. So that's a factor too, is gaining more awareness of your surroundings. I think helps um, with anxiety. A lot of people are afraid of, I mean, they're afraid of the things they see on TV. You know, what's the term? Home invasions. Burglaries, theft, like all that stuff. People get scared of that. I mean, rightfully so. You do the best you can to, protect yourself and your family, but you never think that something could happen until it happens. Some people are really prepared. They're like uh, they're like survivalists in that respect, where they're armed to the teeth. They've got alarm systems. They've got layers of security before they even get to the front door. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's peace of mind, for a lot of people. But other people, they don't have that. They don't think about that stuff. And then something happens, and it's becomes a traumatic event for them. So if they're going through that, they might be dealing with the anxiety of it happening again. That's like PTSD. You have a traumatic experience, and then you kind of relive it. Sometimes there are triggers to that experience, and it's terrible. It's a really awful feeling. So going back to having that open space, I think it's as vital as the other two strategies that I mentioned before. Having the open space, being able to properly do breath work and meditation, I think are vital to be able to alleviate a lot of the symptoms of anxiety. Let's see. Next, I would say helped me was being able to talk it out. My wife, Jessie, she was the biggest um, healing aspect of how I've been able to get through this. Um, I was able to trust her with the information I was telling her. I was able to open up to her in a way that I'd never done before, which was really healing, in the fact that I was able to release the pent up emotions that I had been building up over my life. Especially the deep down suppressed emotions from the suppressed memories of my childhood and early adult life. So having someone you can trust with that information, to be able to talk to them about it, just to speak on what you're going through in that moment, because there are times where you may think, is this actually happening, or am I just imagining this, or what is this? Whatever you're going through, sometimes you think like, I don't know. Sometimes you're in a normal situation. I can recall a specific situation where I thought, I don't understand how this is happening. How could I be having a panic attack in the middle of a Target? Like, I'm at the checkout line waiting to, buy my stuff, and all of a sudden I feel this wave of fear and dread wash over me. And it's a familiar feeling if you've had those, panic attacks before. And for me, I felt genuinely surprised, because I thought, well, I'd been putting in the work. I'd been doing the meditation and the breath work and the getting out in space and exercising and talking out my emotions so that I didn't have to hold on to them, and bury them down. I was doing all those things, and still, I would still have anxiety, and it would be unexplained. There would be no trigger. In that specific circumstance at that Target, there was no trigger. I was just waiting in line. So it's one of those things where if you can talk it out, no matter when it happens, no matter why it happens, you have tools to be able to address it right then and there, and hopefully all it is anxiety, right? As long as it's not an actual medical emergency, because that's what it was for me. I had to go to the ER thinking it was a medical emergency, and then being told, no, it's just anxiety. Sorry. Everything checks out. Physically, you're fine. Which is, that's the worst thing in the world. If you go to the ER, first of all, you go to the ER, you have to wait. You're feeling the way you're feeling, but you're being told, like, well, we'll see you as soon as possible. You just have to go wait over there in the little waiting room. But you're feeling like shit. You feel like you're dying. You feel like you're gonna pass out. Like, all these different things are going on. Plus the racing thoughts, the fear of dying. But you have to wait, and you have to sit with it. So if that's the case, these tools that I've used are what got me through a lot of those experiences, for sure. And also I want to add to that, to the last thing about talking it out. If there's no one around and there's no one to call and it's just you, if you need to talk it out yourself, that's just as good. Because I have another example of being in that situation where there was no one around me, it was just me, and I was dealing with a panic attack. And it was something that I almost insisted on dealing with alone this time. I felt like I had all the tools I needed to figure it out and not escalate what I was feeling, because that's another thing with anxiety is sometimes your thoughts can increase the level, the intensity of what you're experiencing, the heartbeat, palpitations, the heart racing, yeah, the sweaty palms, the tightness in your like chest and neck and shoulders and all that. That's what I experienced. And so I sat in the car feeling all these things that I just described, and I started talking it out. I started saying, you are safe. You are not in danger. Whatever this is will pass. So keep breathing, keep focusing on your breath, and this will pass. And by the way, this happened in the parking lot of a movie theater. I had to stay in the car while my wife went in, with our other, family, and I told her, like, I'm gonna stay in the car for a minute and, kind of sort myself out. So I'll be in there in a while. And I had to basically put it in my head, like, hey, you're not putting anyone out by doing this. Don't worry about what's going on outside of this car. Just focus on yourself and what you need to do to get through this. So that's where I talked to myself and talked it out, talked through the whole process while also breathing, while also kind of getting into a meditative state. I think at one point I looked up my phone, looked on my phone for a meditation video, and then I moved on to a box breathing video where I could just focus on my breath, and it was just something that I was able to zone in on and take my anxious mind out of the equation. Just being able to focus on a specific task helped me through that particular episode. So yeah, like I said before, if you can't talk it out with someone that you can trust with that information, with whatever you're talking about, just get in and out is just as good, just as well. It helped me. It really did. It got me through that day to where I was able to get out of the car, which I told myself, like, okay, you're going to get out of this car now, you're going to walk in the movie theater, and you're going to do your best. And I still felt like shit the whole time, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I knew it wasn't what my fears were telling me it was. It wasn't a heart attack. It wasn't like a stroke or a brain, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a situation where I needed to legitimately be concerned for my health. It was something that I had dealt with before. It was something that I was all too familiar with. And so that familiarity really helped to calm my mind down. And so there must have been like an adrenaline surge during that time, because I definitely felt like jittery once I got into the movie theater. But as time went on, I started coming out of that. I started relaxing. I started to be able to be present, which is a big part of that too, is, just focusing on the moment. What you're dealing with in that moment, that's all that matters. You don't have to worry about the future. You don't have to, You don't have to think on like, what did I do in the past that caused all this to happen now? Okay? You don't have to worry about any of that. Focus on the moment. Focus on what you're experiencing and work through it. It's really easy to just go off the deep end. I mean, Western medicine really does, you know, make it so that you don't have to really do much of the work if there's a pill available to take the pain away or the symptom away, treating the symptom. You got to treat the root cause. And that, again, that's not medical advice, just want to say, but in my mind, when I have dealt with the root issues, I have come out of those experiences with that knowledge of how to heal myself, and how to take a lot of the guesswork out of that process of healing. Putting in that work, experiencing what you experience, getting that firsthand knowledge of what it feels like, but also being okay with that experience. That's another thing. You got to put in the work. If you want to heal yourself, it's up to you to put in the work. It's not like, I don't know what kind of massage. It's like a Thai massage, I think. It's a poor example, but the kind of massage where they manipulate your body for you. They're like putting you in like yoga poses and things like that. It's not like that. You have to be the one that does the work to heal yourself. That's the only thing I could come up with. I don't know. But one more thing that I'll add to that in terms of a tool. If at all possible, stay off your phone. Like, if you can use it to bring up a tool, like I had mentioned before, being able to use my phone to bring up like a breathing exercise video or a meditation video, that's okay. But in terms of what I'm saying, I mean it to tell you that you do not want to be on your phone during this time. You do not want to be scrolling on TikTok, looking up random YouTube videos, trying to watch a show, trying to read an article or something, like something that could trigger you even more or further, like watching the news or something. Like, no. You don't want additional stimulation at this time. You want to be able to desensitize from the external like sources, because you've got all these things going on internally that are already causing enough chaos. So why would you add all this external stuff to that, situation? So do what you have to do. But me personally, I put my phone down. I turned it off. I didn't watch TV. I got away from any device I could, to get out into open space, to focus on my breath work, to get into a meditative state. I had to get away from the electronic devices as much as possible until I get to a point to where the symptoms, kind of recede and go away. It's like the ocean, the high tide and the low tide, like, you wait for the high tide to come in and then let it wash out to sea. And then once it's low tide, you're like, okay, we're good. We can get back on the beach now. So that's what I've been working on through the years, because I have not fully eliminated this anxiety I have. I have definitely addressed a lot of the triggers to that anxiety, and those triggers are no longer applicable to what contributes to that anxiety now, which is good progress. It's an ongoing struggle, but it's a worthwhile thing to struggle with. I like to tell people that if you're struggling with something, that's a good thing. That means that you're working on it. You may not be succeeding at it. You may not be doing a very good job of working on the thing, but the struggle is where the real reward is, I think. Because that's where you find out the most about yourself. It's an opportunity for you to learn about you, how you work. You can gain that perspective on yourself that no one else can. No amount of asking people questions about what their experience is. It's different. You get the firsthand knowledge of how you work, how you operate, what triggers you, what causes these episodes. And that's what I did. That's what I was able to do in struggling through this process. I was able to know for myself that I needed to work on a lot of things, things that I may not have been aware of, but now that I was aware, there was no excuse but to put in the work to address those issues once and for all. So I hope this helps you. Whoever watches this, if you're dealing with anxiety, know that you will get through it. And if you use some of these tools that I mentioned, I think it will benefit you in the long run, especially when the moment happens where you have to deal with anxiety again. Lean on these practices as much as you can, because that's what's going to get you through it. If it's not an actual medical emergency, then these are things that you can do for yourself. So again, I hope this helps whoever out there watches this who is dealing with similar issues. If you know anybody that has been dealing with these issues, maybe share this with them, and maybe it'll help them. That's why I made this video, because I know that there are a lot of people out there that feel how I feel and have experienced what I have, and in some cases a lot worse. And I wish to learn more from people just like that, how they get through things. So if you are said individual, and if you feel okay with sharing, please leave a comment. I want to hear how you guys out there have been able to deal with anxiety, with panic attacks, things like that. Because I'm still working on it myself. I have my moments now and again. They're not as intense as they used to be, but they still happen, and I have to be mindful of the tools that I have at my disposal. And you should too. Be mindful of the tools that you have. Be mindful of the people around you that you can call upon. You're not a burden. You don't have to think yourself as a burden to everyone around you, because they care about you. Your loved ones care about you. They want you to be healthy. They want you to be happy. So take care of yourself. Again, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about this video. It's kind of outside the norm of what I've put out so far, but I think it can apply to a lot of people, especially people in the crypto space. We crypto folk, we've toiled, we've stressed on on these coins and the prices, and when is it going to moon, when is it going to go up, when am I going to be able to realize some profits and change my life, like all these things, right? So maybe this will help you guys too in the crypto space. So yeah, if you found this enjoyable or helpful, please leave a comment, like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys at another time. Take care, guys.